Yo, what is up guys, your boy IzuKage here with a new what if, and this what if is what if Deku was Kratos. So before we get into this, I want to just say I'm gonna lowball Kratos hard. You think my bear's what if I lowballed him? Well, you're in for something, because Kratos literally cannot be killed. Like, he won against Zeus and Hercules, both known for their immense strength. So I just can't do that. Like, it wouldn't be an entertaining what if Izuku just looks at someone and they're dead. So with all that said, let's just get right into the what if. So we start this what if off with a 4-year-old Deku. He's on his way to the quirk doctor, but earlier at school his skin actually began to change to a grayish color, and a teacher immediately called Inko to come for Izuku because she thinks like it's his quirk awakening. So at the quirk doctor, and this doctor not being Dr. Izuku, if you don't know why I'm making it a different doctor, then it's just a spoiler, don't worry about it. So Deku gets examined, and around 10 minutes later Inko gets called in, and the doctor explains that they aren't really aware of what his quirk is, but he seems to be very hot-tempered. He wouldn't cooperate with them sometimes, and Inko, hearing this, was confused, like, my innocent baby Izuku? Hot-tempered? She just chuckled, thinking they're overreacting. So she takes Izuku home without much issue, and he's just his usual self apart from, his skin color change. So at school, people, like kids, have to be kids, so they see Izuku with this like ash color skin, and people start making fun of him at school, calling him Ghost Boy or freaking Ghostbusters, whatever ghost joke you can think of. And Izuku was visibly getting angry, and Bakugo, seeing this, is like, what are you gonna do, you Deku? Yeah, I like that name, Deku. And Izuku just turned around and shoved Bakugo into a desk, and he hit his head on the desk, but it wasn't that hard, and Bakugo got up angry. He ran at Izuku and sent an explosion to his face right above his left eye, and Izuku grabbed it in pain. And he got mad, and he punched Bakugo with all his strength, sending him flying across the room, leaving a dent in the brick wall. The teacher, hearing all this commotion, came into the class and saw Bakugo fall to the ground, and when he looked around to see like who caused all this, all of the students pointed at Izuku. So the teacher grabbed him and went to the principal's office and told the student to bring Bakugo to the infirmary. So in the principal's office, Izuku was given a 2-week suspension because all the students they brought in to like retell the situation, they all said the same thing, saying Izuku was the cause of the fight. And it wasn't completely wrong because he did shove him first, but most of these people were just scared of what Bakugo would do to them for being on Izuku's side. So after reprimanding him, the principal called Inko and informed her on the situation, and Inko was like, in simple words, just disbelief. First the doctor is saying he's hot-tempered, now this. So she would go to take care of it. So she drove to school to pick up Izuku, and he was waiting at the front gate. When he got in the car, there was just complete silence. No one was talking, and Inko had the occasional glance to the back seat through the rearview mirror. So they made it home, and Inko had a long talk with Izuku about controlling his anger and not hurting others. And Izuku tried explaining his side of events, but Inko wasn't hearing it. She just sent him to his room, and so like Izuku spent his 2-week suspension mostly locked up in his room, only coming out for food. And Inko did kind of feel bad because she never had to shout at Izuku like that. So she tried talking to him, but it was in vain. Izuku just ignored her. So the first day back to school, Izuku walks into class and everyone goes silent, even Bakugo, because he knows firsthand what those punches can do. So for the rest of elementary school, Izuku didn't have any other problems. So throughout middle school, Izuku has been a lone wolf, kinda, and he doesn't go out of his way to talk to people, and people don't mess with him. So by the last day of middle school, Bakugo had actually been training all this time, training up his quirk to try and regain his honor, or whatever that means. So this made him feel like he could step to Deku one day. So the teacher comes in and throws up the papers and says, like, I was gonna pass these out, but I know you all want to be heroes. And everyone starts cheering, using their quirks, and then he says, okay, settle down, settle down. I see here we have a student applying to UA, Bakugo Katsuki. And Bakugo just nodded his head because, in this he isn't as loudmouth. So the teacher then says, well, I'll see you guys off, but Izuku, I'd like to talk to you after class. So after 5 minutes, everyone was out of the classroom. This was the last day. They were excited to go home, so why stay any longer? So Izuku went up to the teacher and he says, Izuku, I know about your situation at your own school, but don't let that hold you back. You didn't register for entry at any high school, so I did it for you. And he shows Izuku the registration papers for UA. Izuku was pissed off that he would made that decision for him, but it was already sent and this was just a copy. So there was nothing he could really do, and Izuku, without any words, just walked out of the class. But before he could fully, the teacher put a hand on his shoulder and said, I know you can do it, and then let him go. While he was walking out of the building, Izuku felt weird, like he couldn't explain it, but every word his teacher told him, it just resonated with him. So as he stepped through the front door, he tripped on something and fell face first into the ground. He looked up to see who or what it was, and Bakugo was just there standing over him laughing. Izuku got back on his feet and was going to confront him, but the teacher's words kept going through his head. And I know you can do it. So he turned around and began walking back home, and Bakugo wasn't expecting this, so he ran up and shoved Izuku. And Izuku stumbled but didn't fall, and he turned around and Bakugo said, oops, didn't see you there. And Izuku just sighed and just walked away. He was over this. And Bakugo again ran up, but this time using his quirk, shoved Izuku with an explosive blast, sending him to the ground. Izuku had had enough. He turned around and punched Bakugo in the stomach, but he chuckled and he said, wow Izuku, you got soft on me. And he set off an explosion right in his chest, sending him back to the ground. Bakugo quickly ran up and mounted Izuku, punching him across the face over and over. A crowd of people began to gather and some were cheering while others were pleading for Bakugo to stop. But he didn't until Izuku was completely unconscious and his jaw actually broken. So Bakugo gets up and starts celebrating like, yeah, this weakling ain't got nothing on me, yada yada yada. So, all of this made Izuku just mad, increasing his strength, and Izuku's eyes shot open with a hint of red. He got up slowly, with his jaw fitting back into place, actually healing itself, and the wounds on his face began to close. He grabbed Bakugo by the back of the shirt and slammed him into the ground, and by now teachers had come to see the fight and tried to stop it, but Izuku started stomping out Bakugo in a fit of rage, and a teacher with a strength boosting quirk came up behind him and tried dragging Izuku off Bakugo. But Izuku just kicked him in his stomach and started beating him up, left hook, right hook, and just grabbed his head and slammed it into his knee. Izuku dropped the now bloody teacher to the ground and stared at the crowd of students, and in an uncontrollable rage, he ran towards them, punching and kicking everyone in his range. No one was safe, and the security guard from the school came rushing in. He had an ice quirk and he shot it at Izuku, freezing his feet to the ground, but steam started coming off the ice, like he had internal heat hot enough to melt it, and Izuku broke free and started wailing on the security guard. Now, heroes were actually called. The first to the scene was Native, Native from the whole Stain incident. So, to be honest, I don't know this man's quirk, but he got folded by Izuku, no question. Now, it was just Izuku standing on the field of the school, surrounded by unconscious students, teachers, and a hero. The police now arrived and put up a blockade around the school. But let's switch points of view real quick to All Might. He just brought the sludge villain into the police station and was walking around in his skinny form. But ahead he saw dozens of cops in front of a school, and he goes to check what it is, and he sees what looks like a young teen standing around bodies, like dead bodies, like All Might thought this kid was killing people. So he rushed into an alleyway where no one could see him and he buffed up. And back to Izuku. He was ready to now take on the police, but from a distance he could hear, "I am here." All Might landed in front of Izuku, kicking up some dust, but when it settled, Izuku looked up to see All Might towering over him. He says, "Young man, what is the meaning of this?" And Izuku just said, "Shut up," and punched All Might, but he blocked it with one hand. Izuku was surprised and tried hitting him with his other hand, but he caught that as well. Izuku said, "Let me go," and managed to escape his grip. All Might said, "Surrender now and I won't have to hurt you." But underneath his breath, Izuku said, "Like you can," and punched All Might again and again, each hit more powerful than the last because of his increasing anger, but the more anger he got, the less control he had. All Might then jumped back to create space and said, "Detroit, smash!" and punched the air, causing a violent wind to hit Izuku, but to All Might's surprise and fear, Izuku withstood it. All Might said, "How?" And Izuku ran up, punching All Might across the face, knocking out a tooth. And All Might got up quickly and shouted to the officers, "Call midnight!" But then he got another punch to the gut, and this sent him into the side of the school, and All Might was breathing heavily. When he looked up, Izuku was rushing his way for another punch, and All Might waited for the perfect time and dodged, grabbing Izuku's hand and twisting it behind his back. This made Izuku screaming pain, but All Might pinned him to the ground and asked the officers again, "Where is Midnight?" They said, "We called her and she's on her way," and All Might gritted his teeth, knowing he won't be able to hold Izuku for long. So Izuku was shaking his body, trying to get off All Might, but it was no use. But All Might was holding him at his wrist, so he could actually move his hand, his fingers, things like that. So Izuku used his hand to grab onto All Might and began squeezing down, and this was enough force that All Might let up for a second, but that's all Izuku needed. He used that to escape, he used this to escape, freeing his hand and grabbing All Might's leg and throwing him to the ground. Izuku got up and stood over All Might. Now the news channels were all there to report on the fight, but Midnight did arrive. She kept out of sight from Izuku and got onto the school grounds from the other side, so she would be behind Izuku. But he slowly started walking up to All Might, who was lying down on the ground, broken and steam coming off of him, but Izuku didn't know what this meant. Most people didn't even realize because it just blended in with all the dirt they were kicking up. So All Might looked up and into Izuku's eyes and he just saw the end, but help had arrived. He saw Midnight sneaking up behind Izuku and All Might spun his body around, tripping him, and Midnight pulled on her clothes, releasing her sleep-inducing aroma. Izuku tried resisting it and turned to Midnight to try and take her down, but with every step towards her he felt more and more tired until he fell unconscious in front of her. The officers rushed in to apprehend Izuku, and the medics on standby went around to check everyone's vitals and things like that. And the police chief took All Might away, before he could revert into his skinny form. So to Inko, she was sitting in front of the TV, unable to move, frozen. This can't be her son, can it? But it was. But back to school. The medics confirmed that no one was killed, just badly beaten, especially a spiky-haired kid. And Izuku was taken to a holding cell near to a nearby police station, where he was laying there still sleeping. 5 hours later, Izuku woke up in his cell, confused, but the events of the day hit him, so he began to look around, to see where he was, and he realized he was in a cell. And an officer who was walking around checking on all the criminals saw Izuku was awake and froze for a second but ran away. He had actually went to call the police chief, and a couple minutes later, a man with a dog a dog head came in front of Izuku's cell and a buff All Might as well. The police chief said, "Kid, you got a lot of explaining to do." Izuku was taken into an interrogation room where the police chief tried getting information out of him. Maybe he was a part of some villain organization or independent, but Izuku wasn't talking. He wasn't talking to any of them, and All Might actually tried as well, pleading with Izuku, telling him, he can't ruin his life like this. He can help him, but he has to give him the information he needs. But Izuku still wasn't talking. And this interrogation was going on for 30 minutes, and the police chief said it was just never gonna happen. But before they could end the whole thing, Inko actually came to the police station, and she requested to see Izuku. When the police chief heard about this, he said, sure, why not? So they brought her into the interrogation room as well, and Inko was crying, and Izuku, seeing this, just he couldn't live with himself knowing he made his mom cry like this. And he said, Mom, I'm sorry, it's just this anger boiling up inside of me. It's like I couldn't control myself. I just wanted to go on and on to just hurt those who've wronged me, hurt those who stepped in my way, even innocent people, and I was afraid that even if you were there, I would hurt you too. Inko got up and went around the table to embrace Izuku, and she said, don't worry, Izuku, we can figure this out. Remember, I'm your mom. I'll always be there for you. So this made Izuku actually cry. Now both of them were crying uncontrollably, and All Might and the police chief outside were just standing there awkward, should we stop them? And All Might just said, no, just let them have the moment. And while Izuku and Inko are having their moment, this moment is where I'm gonna be ending the video. I'm trying to transition to the end. It just wasn't gonna work. But yeah, thank you guys for sticking around to the end of the video. And because this is Kratos' power, I actually wanted to introduce more gods and things like that, because Zeus is Kratos' father. So yeah, I would introduce him in the story as well. And tell me in the comments what Greek god you would like to see. Maybe Izuku could get some power, from them, or just have them in the story and things like that. So yeah, if you guys liked, and if you like my content in general, subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next What If.